we're going to begin with an overview of the fortress. The Embark was a 6x6 site, completely flat. This allowed me to be able to first off, it's actually much easier to build on flat ground than it is to build on hills. And second, the actual castle of Nottingham is... Oh, wait. Fuck. Yeah. Oh my god. That's fine. It's fine. We can do it in a second take. I do gotta open Discord. Ah, there we go. That's how you do that. Right. So, I'll start from the beginning. This is the House of Snot, which is the Old English translation of Nottingham. In Dwarfish, it is something else, but I'm not going to attempt it at the moment. We're going to begin with an overview of the grounds because it is big. Now, the view that we have, where you can so beautifully see basically the entire town, is because this is a completely flat map. No dwarven earthworks required. In addition to that, it is a 6-tile by 6-tile embark site, which I do not recommend doing even on the small world that I've been playing. It is monstrously bad for your frame rate. Now, we're going to begin with a view here of Friar Tuck's Church. Which we have right here. We can see that with our reference material here, we put a fence around the edge of the church because, well, you want a fence. And then on the inside, we have barely enough room for some seats for the worshippers, and we have some altars over here at the back and a pulpit for Friar Tuck to preach from. Here on the southern end of the fortress, we have the archery contest area. Here is an area from which the town residents can safely view the action through fortifications, and then we have a nice clear dirt field to fire at our archery targets. In addition, we have the 2 tiny towers on which the elephant trumpeters stood from during the contest. And you can see that I made those 5Z levels high, So they get a little bit of nice height. Good lookout towers. The only downside is that they will not collapse like the ones in the movie did. Let's see. I did want to create a camp for Robin Hood and Little John to live in, but it turned out that actually in the movie they didn't have any real furniture. They had a campfire, they had a cauldron, they had a couple of utensils, a clothesline, a basket. Clothes. But no real furniture to speak of. So there wasn't really anywhere that I could set it up. Though, when I originally settled the map, down here in the southwest corner, there was a camp of dwarves. However, they all got murdered by a bunch of goblins, and then I took their stuff. So all that remains of the camp are a few pieces of shot bow and arrow, shot arrows. And it looks like... No, we even moved the corpses. So... that brings us to the castle. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger to start, just so you guys can get a little bit better view. Now, you can see in this reference that the town is built right outside of the castle, right up against the moat, even. And it's just a bunch of tiny houses. And in other ground shots, you can see that people's workshops and workspaces are in their houses. So, I replicated that with my own town here. Around the moat, which is this here. It's frozen over because it's winter. We actually have a really long cold season on this map. We have tons of little individual housing structures packed pretty close together, and in some cases even touching, and in a lot of them you can see the workshops. You'll also notice that there are a lot of purple statues. These are rose gold statues because turns out we had a ton of gold and a ton of copper. So we put it to good use, and the rose gold accessories represent the entire wealth of the town. And the rose gold statues are a consolation to the shitty above ground living that they've been relegated to. We've got some guild halls along here. And there are a number of guilds, though the most popular guild is the Ranger Guild, I think. I don't remember. One of these is the Ranger Guild, and then the other one is the Hunter Guild. But that's where most people enjoy spending their time. On the eastern side, we have a tiny dining hall for people to hang out in that's not quite so far from all the action. On the southern end, right outside of the castle gates, we have a much larger tavern. And above it even includes a bunch of rooms for rent. And then in the western part of town, there is a medium-sized tavern to help accommodate all of the drinking needs of the many animal residents. Now for the castle proper. Now, actually making the decision on how to build this was pretty difficult because in different shots, there are inconsistencies. For example, when Skippy shoots an arrow into the castle, over the castle wall, him and his friends walk up to a gate that leads directly into the garden courtyard section of the castle. But when they do that, there's no moat. There's also a gap between the houses and the castle, and there is no forest nearby. At the end of the movie, there is a forest that leads right up to the edge of the moat, which I kind of tried to keep intact. Then we have the... Yes, so I have a door, in fact, that is the gate to the castle. A rear entrance that basically nobody's allowed to use anymore. And in this area, mostly we have a number of graves from people who helped construct the castle. As you can see, there were a lot of them. Most of them were originally buried down here, directly below the central keep. However, a fire raged through and burned many of the caskets, forcing me to need to rememorialize them, especially since many of their remains got burnt. However, we even included in the castle garden a little badminton court for Maid Marian and Lady Clucky to play badminton on. Just a little paved clay area with a fortification so that projectiles can pass through it. You know, just a little fence type thing. After the construction of the castle finished, which is when we reached here, we constructed Friar Tuck's church, but since the castle's been completed, there haven't been many deaths. So we don't have the gravestones scattered all over the place in this one. Though we do have the bare trees, though I think that they actually still have leaves. Nope. Looks like the leaves are all gone. Good. Let's see. Yes, the castle. We can see from that I managed to get basically all of the towers. I've got the front two towers for the gate. I've got several interconnected towers for the central keep, and then I've got the outside towers here. Now, a tricky bit ended up being this side castle over here that you can see. And I ended up, I think, managing to get it pretty close to scale, except I ended up making it a bit taller. We can see that it's 5 stories high. Actually, but the side castle bit right here is 6. I mean, it goes all the way up to the wall on the back end of the castle, and that seems like such an odd choice to me, but I was like, whatever. I mean, the rest of it turned out that it was pretty well defensible, though. Again, I made the walls a bit taller, closer in height to the towers next to them. Though I do have a couple of these towers which are quite tall, such as this one over here, which is 11 tiles tall, and matches this southeast tower and the very tippy top of the keep, or one of the towers from the central keep. That brings us to the king's bedroom. Now, I did neglect to build a balcony. However, we've got all the royal furniture, tons of gold, so much gold, and then we've got some rose gold statues. The king even happens to have a non-wooden bed that's an artifact made of kaolinite. And most interestingly of all, well, we'll continue the tour a little bit first. Below the king's bedroom, we've got the outpost liaison, because this is a mountain home. And so the king actually does live in the castle. Down here we have the mayor's bedroom, and this includes... Wait. Sorry. This is the captain... Wait. Okay. Chief doctor's quarters here. And then here at wall level, we have kind of just like an empty holding room. You can see that my castle walls go basically all the way around, so that ideally each tower could be sealed off in case of a siege. Each tower also includes its own barracks, its own small food and ammunition supply, so that theoretically, in case of an invasion, each could hold out for some small amount of time on their own. Let's see. The wall turned out was actually climbable, which was great. We had a number of instances of goblins climbing up to the top of the wall, or near the top, only to get shot down and then fall to their deaths or to drown in the moat below. You can also see that we recently came out of a siege where we murdered a lot of goblins. There were a lot of dead goblins. They fought well, and we lost a few brave dwarves who bravely but foolishly hopped over the fortifications of the wall, scaled down, and then decided to fight the hordes at the entrance of the castle, instead of, firing their weapon from the safety of the walls. We've completely paved the outside area here, which took a lot of material. Actually, building anything above ground takes a lot of material. Humans are dumb for building castles when we could make fortresses out of rock in the tunnels below instead. But I guess that's an argument for another day. We've got some fortified doors to separate off the major segments. Here we have the library. where, you know, people, we've got some interesting academic discussions that are constantly going on. Here we have the hospital, and then we've got the siege forges, so that we can continue our metal production even during sieges. Here we have a bunch of metal, mostly charcoal. Let's see. Alright, then I will take, and then, throughout the castle we have a number of living spaces. And the barracks are all on the second floor. Just makes it easy. Oh, yes. Back to the central keep. See, we've got the mayor's room here. The mayor actually has a switch that connects to the castle vault. Oh, here we also have an indoor archery range so that people can practice their archery skills even when they're stuck, locked into the central keep. In the worst case scenarios where everything has to get locked down because of probably a flying thing. And then below that, we have the worship area. This is a general worship area inside of the keep, but it's the most decorated, and so it's the one that everyone prefers to go to. It includes a pedestal that has a couple of artifacts, because, you know, you want to have your holy items and whatnot. We've got a bunch of offering boxes and bags, an instrument, and then a whole bunch of altars because it's shared between like 20 gods, 20 religions, whatever. Below that, we have the main entryway into the keep, which has a really nice sculpture garden and a museum for the people to enjoy. It also includes our main switches for the gate and the back door being here, and then the main gate being here, of course. And we also have an interior farming space, so that, you know, we can continue to produce a little bit of food and alcohol during siege times. Below that, we have the gravesite, which I've already touched on before, and with a little bit of underground farming. Underneath that, we've got our vault, which includes a pedestal that contains a lot of artifacts. I mean, a lot. In addition, it includes a number of gem bins. Got gems, and then over in here, we've got our coin stockpiles, which are low at the moment, but in their heyday contained millions of rose gold coins. Next to that, we have our ammo stockpile and our well, because of course you have to have a well for sieges. You need water. Water is life. Man cannot live on alcohol alone, and dwarves cannot live without it. But still, water is pretty important. Now, for the twist, where I moved in a bunch of animal people, including Robinhood, who, in a coup during a siege, became king and beheaded the queen shortly after becoming a mountain home and assuming a place at the top of society. You can't make this stuff up. if there was anyone that I expected to actually become king, I had expected it to be King Richard, who became king in name only, or Prince John, because he's a schemer, or maybe Sir Hiss, because he was also a schemer, and his goal was to rule the world. Though many of those animal people have died, Robin Hood has managed to live, and his royal holdings. Now, I customized almost all of the animal people so that they would have traits similar to what they had in the movie, from, what I could gather. And just by doing that, he managed to have the dream of falling in love. Fortunately, there is a companion. Robin Hood here made Marianne here. And her goal in life is also to fall in love. Beautiful, beautiful. Unfortunately, the two of them haven't spent a ton of time together. They just keep missing each other. And so, they have not yet fallen in love, much to their dismay. Other characters of note include Friar Tuck, who is an absolute badass when it comes to his fighting skills. With 3 kills under his belt. Unfortunately, this version of Friar Tuck is not really a man of the cloth. But he is everyone's close companion. Just about, at least. He's well liked and respected in the community. Let's see. We also included the Toby Turtle, as well as his father, and all, or at least most of, the Rhinoceros guards. Rhino Men, the Wolf Men that are the Sheriff Nottingham's guards, and other archers. The Sheriff of Nottingham himself, who I think is dead. A number of rabbit people, many of whom were also slaughtered. I mean, basically every person who was on screen in the movie, I included. Unfortunately, a bunch of them have died because it's Dwarf Fortress. However, interestingly enough, this fortress has gone on long enough that the firstborn of Nottingham has reached adulthood. Is apparently watching a mining demonstration, which I don't know if you've ever seen that in the guilds. People actually teaching each other the stuff that they know at the guild halls. It's fucking great. I mean, look at how much people love being in these guilds. They like it almost as much as church. Right. And then we have the quarry pit over here, which, while it was a fun thing to dig out, was not very practical, and digging a quarry pit through aquifer is a fate that I would not wish on anyone else again, because I lost so many dwarves just trying to keep it stable. And even now it still floods, but at least it's not so bad. let's see. The Outpost Liaison, King Robinhood, Tourist McCrab, one of our militia captains. Pretty awesome. While King Richard died, Prince John has managed to live, though he totally sucks as a fighter compared to most of the others. Other interesting things that we learned about animal people. Having a bunch of different sized ones is extremely tedious to get clothing for. Here we have a feat of dwarven engineering. It's just a big warehouse to hold animals in, because I was tired of my animals getting slaughtered. But I didn't want to keep them in the castle. In fact, I couldn't really keep them in the castle anymore because I wanted trees to grow in here for lumber during sieges. And since we paved over their original fields over here, they had to go. Here we actually have our archery range for training in the castle, and when everyone is training at the same time, it is a beautiful thing to watch. Just a solid row of people all firing almost in unison. Below each of the taverns and the church are tunnels, evacuation tunnels, to get into the castle via them instead of through the front gate, because it turns out that some of these animal people walk really, really slowly, like the rhino men. They can move fast when they want to, but for the most part, they just chug along at a crawl. Finally, we have our underground mining and smelting operation. Here we've got our magma forges, which this is just straight up dwarf power here, and then our garbage dump. And then slightly above that, we've got a complex set of tunnels that we've mined to excavate and discover the numerous sources of adamantine available. And oh boy, while we haven't even finished, and yet we have collected a ton. However, much of it will remain unmined, as this shall be the retirement day. Oh yes, we could not leave without talking about my favorite person to watch, Trigger. Now, I had Trigger and Nutsy, and I made them equip their respective weapons that they use in the movie, and watching flying animal people take shortcuts that your dwarves can't, and moving faster than your dwarves is so amusing. Trigger, however, is a female vulture person, and so at one point actually claimed one of the nest boxes that I had reserved for chickens, turkeys, other such creatures, and laid her own set of eggs. Unfortunately, I did not get the opportunity to forbid the eggs from being grabbed, and they were taken by one of the dwarves and stuck in a food stockpile, resulting in the later discovered vulture man egg omelets. They cooked her babies, and she hasn't laid a single clutch of eggs since. Oh well. It's a sad thing, but pretty hilarious. And with that, things are generally going well. The castle is defensible. And while there could be a few general improvements, I am pretty satisfied with the results. Now, I will attempt to do some more screenshots of the castle with stone sense, but because of how big the embark site is, it really doesn't seem to like taking screenshots without crashing. But I'll see if I can figure it out later. And with that, we will retire this fortress. The next project is the birdcage. And it'll take a little bit of setup and preparation, so I'm not going to do it tonight. Today's a pretty short stream.